Savage, what is in the back seat? You're the biggest Gen Zer.
You just gotta kind of climb into it.
This is not happening. You working?
It's like a Christmas tree.
It's exactly like a Christmas tree. I wasn't ready. I wasn't mentally prepared for all the lights. I feel the horse purrs already. Does this not work?
It just gets stuck sometimes.
I want to buckle up for my children's, and
Let me show you what I do. You just pull the bottom part out and slide into it.
no, you do not. Okay. We're good. Safety first. We're safe. We're safety first here. All right, back into the Christmas tree. Those are good brakes.
It's like the only thing that's good.
I know the guy who did those.
Try to get it up to like 50. See how that feels.
Race car. What was the noise?
I think that's my differential. I'm not too sure.
This thing is total. Do you have insurance?
It still runs.
Yeah, I'm gonna pray for you that somebody smashes into the back of you. Black ice. There is no other little tree that matters. Right there, black ice. That's for stunners. Race car, go. There we go. Suspension feels good.
Yeah, I think the front driver's strut is blown. When you hit a bump, it makes a noise.
The whole front end of the vehicle makes a noise. It actually doesn't drive bad. It has no balls. It is absolutely gutless.
I don't think it has second gear. That's the
This
problem.
thing is absolutely gutless. So do you all know about this stuff? Are you literally drinking a drink that says Cosmic Vibe on it?
It's good. Try it.
Do you mind if I drink this?
I don't care.
Okay, well,
I have more.
Why is it so bubbly? This is what all the cool people are drinking these days. Honestly, the Savage wagon is really not that bad. Are you concerned about all the lights on your dash?
A little bit, not really. I kind of know what most of them mean. The gas light's on because I have no gas.
Well, I'm glad that we've established that now.
I disconnected the fuse for the ABS.
Yep. That's just a suggestion.
I think I have a bunch of misfires. That's why the check engine light's on.
You know, the grinding sound that your front end makes sounds a little bit like a hybrid coming through. It's kind of like you're like a hybrid vehicle driver now. Is that how you feel?
No, I just turn my music all the way up so I don't hear it.
That's how
It's a
most of
life
America. Life hack. That's how most of America fixes their vehicles. Just turn it up louder. What happens if I switch these with your crunchy front differential? Does it make lots of noise?
I mean, we can test it.
No, I'm just gonna have to get out of this seatbelt because I was safe on my drive.
It can go over your head.
What do you mean? Pull this out and I'm gonna. Oh, so you know what? You shouldn't have told me because I was totally gonna like limbo out of. Is that how you come to work every day? We're done. Did you know that I recently got stuck on a, it's not deserted, but a really inaccessible island, and it took me 5 hours to get off of it because of this? Tech Tuesday, we're back again, and this particular Jeep is not going to get stuck on the island, and I'll tell you more about that one if you haven't heard that story. This is a 2021 JL Wrangler, and this little booger right here is your auxiliary battery. A lot of people think this is what is controlling the start-stop function of your Jeep Chrysler vehicle, and it is not. This is a backup auxiliary battery to ensure full continuity and amperage voltage available to the vehicle when the vehicle is off. Start and stop is actually still used by the big battery, right? That has the actual starting amperage. This doesn't. This is a reserve battery. So this 2021 came in about 6 months ago. Customer said that they noticed that the start-stop was unavailable. They kind of ignored it. Recently, the clock stopped working so well. The Jeep started to start a little harder, a little slower. Sure enough, when we went ahead and measured and tested the battery system on this particular Jeep, it was in fact out of roughly 950 cold cranking amps that should be available to the Jeep, it was pulling about 160. So went ahead, and this one was fairly easily done because you access it through the wheel well. This little guy is buried inside this fender. You access it up through the wheel well, in through these mud flaps, and pull this inner liner out, and that little booger is in there sucking down the life out of the big battery. Everybody knows what the big battery looks like. And what happens is this particular cable here is the ground circuit for that little battery, and additionally that little battery ties into this main positive bus bar here. So that little battery goes bad, thus making this battery discharge fully into the little battery over and over and over again, and it eventually makes both batteries go bad. A lot of people say, but Neil, can I just replace the one? They call it the start-stop battery. I'll call it the start-stop battery for you, but the thing is, it's not actually a start-stop battery. This battery has the starting ability of the vehicle. That little motorcycle battery, a motorcycle, lawnmower, whatever, it's a 200 cold cranking amp or a 200 CCA. It is just meant to make sure that everything gets appropriate and full voltage amperage available to it for the vehicle when the vehicle's off. Because of course that start-stop, you pull up to the stop sign, the stop light, foot's depressing the brake pedal, the engine shuts off, but your air conditioning runs, your stereo stays on, your steering wheel controls stay available, the backlights, your headlights, all that stuff stays on. That's what's happening between those two batteries. Ultimately, it is a minor dual battery system. The downside is the fact that that little battery can parasitically draw off of this. The alternator comes up, charges the big battery, it discharges into the little battery, and it becomes a vicious cycle of charging and discharging. Needless to say, we got this one taken care of. We went ahead and we swapped out both batteries, because eventually what happens is if you just replace one or the other, there's horror stories all over the internet about people going to the dealership. Dealership tests the big battery, they replace it. 2-3 days later, the Jeep's dead again on the side of the road, because ultimately the problem is the little battery. Equally, if you replace just the little battery and that toxic cycle, it's like breaking up and getting back together your ex over and over again, that toxic cycle has actually damaged your big battery. We just replaced both. That's the only way that I can assure the system works the way that the mothership's engineers originally designed it to.
We have uncovered a previous bad juju in this bodywork. This was literally packed full of strand fiberglass, like they cut up little pieces of mat and stuffed it in there. The inner brace that runs all the way up to the cowl, the whole bottom of it is rotted off. The floor that goes between that and these supports has some holes, and obviously it's propagated out into this step and up into this panel. And I've been trying to decide how I want to repair this for a while. I've come to the conclusion that I'm just going to remove the bottom of the cowl. I can take it over to the workbench and I can work on that area. That will open up this brace. I'll be able to repair that, repair the floor, inspect this channel for any damage, and then I can simply weld this back in. In order to do that, we have to get some spot welds removed. So that is what you see us here. We have a drilled hole here. You see a couple small holes here. That is because on the back side, I have removed 3 spot welds. With that said, there was already compromising problems in this area where some welds are already broken loose. So this is honestly kind of helpful. We also have a stress crack here that I'll be able to repair again on the bench really nicely, kind of make a adequate repair. While we're talking about what we've done on the Jeep, I'm gonna have Dave come around. And so again, we had damage in this general area. Now we did not have rust out. We had purely weld failing on this corner. This whole body edge had lifted up, and this pocket here had been removed at one time and then just kind of hastily put back on. So what I did is I started trying to just simply wanted to spot weld this back in place. Realized really fast that they had shoved fiberglass resin, this is inside the toolbox, down into this seam, and it didn't make the panels attach. All it did was make it impossible for me to weld. So I went ahead and figured out how far forward that resin was. I cut the panel out. I was able then to take this side of the piece of the body over to the sandblast cabinet, blast both sides really clean, clean this edge. Then I was able to clean the edge of the body. We also had a stress crack here. Went ahead and fixed that while I was at it. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spot welds holding this firmly to the side of the Jeep, so it's properly installed. And then we went ahead and had some holes to fill on this side. I removed this pocket, filled some holes on this side, and then plug welded this back on. Now we are equal distance from the bottom of the body to this pocket and from here to here. I also referenced some photos, and you will see we have 4 holes here, 2 holes here, and 2 here. This is the positioning these are in from the factory. So it is supposed to be offset to the back. So I went ahead and followed that as close as I could. Other than a few other little things, we are slowly getting to the end of the rabbit hole of all this fixing. We do have a little bit more repair in the back, but once this big chunk we're really, running downhill. We'll be able to get this off to bodywork and then finally into that OD green paint. Before we were showing you some of that while we were kind of looking at before we cut it apart. And here we have the pieces on the table. So we have our old pieces, the cardboard templates I made from those pieces, and then our new pieces that are fit up but aren't welded in yet. Basically, you try to remove these pieces with as much in one piece as you possibly can, and then you have to make a piece and you do all your bends on that. And there's a good key: if you can't bend a piece of cardboard, then you aren't going to be able to bend a piece of metal that way. So that means you have to make it multiple pieces or some other method. This piece here was pretty simple overall. Let's see, trace it on a piece of metal, and you can see I got my Cleco holes here for fitting that in place. This piece was more of a challenge. Now this is 18 gauge steel, this is 16 gauge steel. Actually, it might even been a scooch thicker yet. When they were making these bodies, they could make them pretty much any gauge they wanted to. I have to make it as close as possible. So this is the bottom of what we call the cowl foot, and you can see it's literally rotted in half. This is what our body mount literally goes through, so this is kind of important. So made a cardboard template, fit up as best I could, fit that to the body. This hole here obviously wasn't even there, so I had to try to trace that off of the other side, and then made a new piece. And then that's where the fit up comes in, where you make it as close to this, but you can see there's a lot of bit of difference because there was a lot of trim here, cut there, grind there, finesse. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. And once it's all welded in and blended in, nobody's gonna know any better. So that's the way we get all the layers of the sandwich put back together. We still have one more piece, that's this piece here. So you got it all sandblasted, but I have to repair this whole section and this whole section yet. Oh, and this crack. Once this is repaired, then I will assemble this all dry fit is what they call it, before any welding happens. Make sure everything fits, because at that point you can still go through and you can trim a little bit. If you start welding everything in and then the outside doesn't fit, it's too late. You've got to recut everything out. So at this point, our next step will be to make paper templates off of this, make some new pieces for it, get them cut out, fit into this, fit that to the tub, and then we can finally assemble the sandwich, dry. Everything is copacetic. Then we'll do some alignment marks, and then we will put this piece in first, then this piece in second, then finally this piece over top. So that's kind of in a nutshell is why some of this stuff takes so time it does, but this is how you have a good, safe, quality repair where the body has strength. Like I said, this is literally a front body mount for this. This is where your step is. People can put their foot here. If this isn't right, then things are gonna crack, break, move. And usually when you see stuff like this, where there is cracking, that's because that something in the structure of the Jeep started to give up and this sunk and the fender's attached to it. The fender doesn't want to move that direction. So it's not necessarily a bad design or that kind of thing. It's because the structural integrity of the body is actually compromised just enough that these other pieces start seeing some stress. And this is a non-reinforced area. It just easily for it to crack and to cause issues. Luckily, we're going to fix the structural parts of it. So once we weld up that crack, it won't crack again. So that overall is what we're doing here today. One final thing we'll show you on any of these pieces when I expose this channel. See, we got some rust in here. I'm going to clean this all up, and this will all get painted before any of this gets welded on. And we're going to get down into this channel as far as possible. Again, that is to protect it and to eliminate as much rust as possible. Likewise, that brace, the middle piece that we showed you there, will get some paint between it and this outside skin to, again, give it a chance protection. And obviously once that's all repaired, it'll be seam sealed, primed, and then final painted. Just trying to give this as much protection as possible so it'll last another 60 to 70 years.
Hey Jeep family, Neil with SFJ4x4.com, and today I'm going to do a clean, clear-cut instruction on how to change the battery in your key fob. This can be a fun, do-it-yourself activity.
Power go out?
What the heck was that?
Did you blow a breaker? Nothing. Davey did a thing. The moment you shut it off, the light went out.
That's funny.
Right? Hey Jeep family, Neil with SFJ4x4.com, and today we're going to do a how-to on changing the battery in your JL Wrangler and JT Gladiator key fob. This is my actually personal key fob, and so it still has the little protective cover. You might have a fun little plastic one or rubberized one like this you're going to have to snap off. We're going to go ahead and take off the key ring itself, nothing special there, and then we're gonna go ahead and remove the protective covering that you have on your key fob. Maybe yours is just blank like this. At this point in time, most, if not all, the key fobs look identical. I have one of my interior removal tools, but quite frankly, most people have at least a penny or a coin. So that's what I'm gonna work with, is something that you might have at home yourself. You're gonna go ahead and find the bottom of your key fob, and go ahead and turn it over, and at that point in time, you will find this little indentation or slot here for the back cover. Obviously, it says Jeep versus the actual hard buttons for opening, closing, locking, panic, so on and so forth. I'm gonna go ahead and take your penny, and you're gonna go ahead and slide it in and just push up on that little indentation. You can see I've created separation in the back cover case itself. I'm gonna get my fingers in there and start to pry it open a little bit. If that's too hard for you, you can just gently work the penny in, using it as kind of your hard pry tool itself. Again, this is going to be non-marring, but not everybody has this at home, and most everybody can find at least a penny somewhere in their cup holder. Once you've got that open, the back just pops off. There's really no magic there. And there is our battery. The JLJT key fobs take a slightly oversized disc battery. It's the 2450. You can see I went ahead and I'm replacing with the Energizer one. At that point in time, the battery is just kind of press fit in to the housing itself. If you can work your finger in there, otherwise this is where I'm gonna cheat and use my pick tool and press down in this corner.
Several days later.
There we go. Yeah, that's what they need to do. They use their old keychain, key ring there. Once that's out, and that's the challenge, is there's these two little indentations in the spring-loaded piece.
You gotta make that seem like it didn't take you half an hour.
It didn't take me a half an hour. I'm sweating. I'm sweating, Savage. Battery back in. Go ahead and go into reassembly. It just snaps down. Make sure you follow it all around the edges. And for me, goes back in my little protective covering. And I'm obviously going to put my keychain back on because that's critical to this conversation. Perfect. Exactly perfect. It works. The Jeep's not even here. That was a huge fail.
Good. I want all the fail stuff to go up on Patreon.
Right?
I was watching the timer on the camera. It said it took him 6.5 minutes to get the battery out.
Just the battery. Just to get the battery out. Dying.